It's Friday, the 29th of April 2022. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Adam Lang, and good morning to you, Sean Amyler.
Morning, Adam.
Okay, here it is. Everything you need to know in just 5 minutes. Story number 1, supermarket giant Coles has warned that food prices are rising, and that is going to continue.
Yes, Coles boss Stephen Kane said while Coles was doing a better job than its rivals, keeping food inflation to 3.3% during the March quarter, the lengthy process of negotiating with suppliers on prices was only just getting started. That means price rises were at an early stage. All sorts of costs coming through, commodity prices, raw materials, packaging, energy, transport. It just goes on. Of course, this feeds into the debate around interest rates and whether the Reserve Bank will lift the official cash rate next week. The consensus view is it will certainly happen. Labour shortages is a big part of this, and that's a COVID story. Border closures have hurt businesses, absenteeism is rife, but there's more to it. The war in Ukraine is hitting global food prices and global energy prices. The floods along the East Coast and in South Australia in February also hurt things. Some good news though, bananas are down about 26%. Avocados are off 30% or so. Coles said it will be pushing more home brands as a result of all this. The other thing that Stephen Kane mentioned yesterday was that shoppers are returning to big supermarkets, having spent much of the COVID period in neighbourhood outlets.
Price rises are going to continue for some time then, Sean. Forewarned is forearmed, and as you suggest, shop wisely. Story number 2, the economy took centre stage in the election campaign yesterday.
Yes, and that was all about inflation. We were just talking about Coles. It's that sort of commentary from the boss Stephen Kane that's making things tough for the coalition, which has pushed itself as the better economic manager. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said higher domestic inflation was not homegrown, and he denied that government spending during the pandemic overheated the economy. Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said Australia was no different to the rest of the world. And former Prime Minister John Howard jumped in, saying higher inflation showed why voters should opt for the coalition. For its part, Labor called on the government to think more about the cost of living, and it said it would drive inflation lower through increasing skills and participation in the labour market. Labor very much pushed on rising childcare fees as well.
Sean, moving on from the election to story number 3, Fortescue Metals' share price jumped 8% yesterday after raising its iron ore export target.
After 3 months of solid production, Fortescue said it's on track for its 3rd consecutive year of record exports. That's somewhere between 180 and 185 million tonnes. That's good news for the iron ore miner, which hasn't had such a good time of it recently. Even after yesterday's big jump, its share price is still down 5% over the past year. One worrying comment, though, Adam, was that production and construction costs are surging. Fortescue also revealed a further blowout in its Iron Bridge magnetite project. It's becoming a really familiar story in the mining sector. Gold producer Silver Lake yesterday told a similar tale. Another gold digger, Regis Resources, said COVID-related and more general labour shortages had slowed progress at one of its mines. Lithium group Pilbara Minerals warned that production had fallen, in part linked to staffing pressures. It's very, very tough to run a mine at the moment.
Story number 4, Sean, and over to the US, where President Joe Biden has invited whoever wins the Australian election on May 21 to travel to Tokyo for a meeting of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue.
Yes, the meeting's on May 24, so hopefully we'll have a quick result from our election. Mr. Biden is travelling to Tokyo and wants to meet the leaders of the Quad nations, India, Japan and Australia. The meeting is to keep pushing US alliances in the Indo-Pacific region, particularly with Japan and Korea. I'm just not sure it's going to be a great look for the elected PM to leave the country 36 hours, 2 days after the poll. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, thanks for the votes, and I'm off for a bit.
Exactly.
And story number 5, Sean, a real change of pace here. Barbie and Hot Wheels are back in fashion.
Yes, that's exactly right. Now, they're owned by Mattel. Now, it struggled for much of the past decade, but over the past couple of years, it's been very much a turnaround story and it's profitable again. It shed about 1/3 of its workforce and revamped manufacturing. Yesterday, it reported its strongest first quarter of the year on record. Now there are media reports that private equity firms have held talks with the toy maker. It is quite a storied company, Barbie, Hot Wheels. It also has the Fisher-Price brand. They're staples of growing up, really. It's pushed into film and television. Adam, you'll be pleased to know that there's a new Barbie film coming next year with Aussie actress Margot Robbie.
Oh, good.
And once again, it's a hot stock. After its results announcement yesterday, its share price jumped 11%.
Generations of stories in those brands, Sean. And that's it. That's the top 5 business stories in just 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Adam.
It's Friday, the 29th of April, 2022. Now, remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, then find our longer podcast called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform. I'm Adam Lang, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.